green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate. We love to argue. You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good morning, Birds Nation. Appreciate you streaming on in here on Birds 365. It is a waiting Wednesday. Yes, we must show the patience because the Super Bowl is still 11 days off. We got to do some waiting, but it will get here. It'll be the showdown between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Andy Reid against Nick Sirianni. And Johnny Mack, that's why I want to start today with the Eagles head coach. You guys got a chance to talk to him yesterday. I heard his interview on WIP yesterday morning. It just is amazing that we are 2 years removed from the stuttering, didn't have the answers, introductory press conference of the Eagles head coach, where some people were ready to say, hey, we made a mistake. Let's move on before we actually have to live through this.
You were not supposed to bring that up. They all knew he was going to be great.
Not all, not everybody. But
on this show, we said give him a chance. I believe both of us.
Exactly what we said. And you talk about a guy who's grown up on the job. It is just 2 years, and coming into this game, he certainly doesn't have the same experience in the biggest game of all that Andy Reid does, but he doesn't look too big for the moment. He doesn't look like this is going to, in any way, shape, or form, to be too big a task for him. Although he didn't really say anything, and he's gotten really good at that too. And that's an art unto itself, saying something without saying something. He looks like he's very much up to the task.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, they have the best team in football. He's very comfortable in all these situations for one reason, Jody. He knows he's got the best team.
You think that's what it is?
Yes.
Huh?
He knows he has the best team. It's a very comforting feeling when you look up and down that locker room and you see all those players. I mean, I joked about it, and Miles Sanders said it before the season, the all-star team. And we kind of all snickered, and we thought, oh, is this going to be the dream team quote? Well, they made a run at it. With their 22 starters, 17 of them either Pro Bowl alternate, some of them all pro. And remember, that didn't include Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Dallas Goedert only because of injuries. So it would have spiked up to 19. Almost every single starter on this team got some kind of postseason accolade, and deservedly so. There's a couple you could say were underappreciated. Guys like Isaac Seumalo, TJ Edwards. But they received recognition as well. I've never seen a team like it. I was around, I say it all the time, the 98 Vikings, this team's better. That team was 15-1, ultimately lost in the championship game, and Gary Anderson, the first perfect season, missed a big field goal. Otherwise, they would have, who knows. The Eagles Super Bowl team, this team's far more talented. Doesn't mean they're going to finish the job, but it's a better team. than that team was. It's comforting. It's comforting.
But how much does that last game move the needle?
I mean, it moves the needle immensely. If they lose this game, that 2017 team will always be regarded as better than this team.
Right.
Always. They're not, but they will be regarded as such. Yeah, you got to finish it. That's just the way people are. I mean, if you don't win, like for years, I said that 98 Vikings team was the best team, one of the best teams ever. Probably the best Patriots team ever was the team that didn't win. The team that won 16-0 in the regular season, ultimately lost in the Super Bowl. They won all those titles. The best team didn't win. Their best team didn't win. A lot of things have to align to win a Super Bowl. It's very difficult. But yeah, I mean, history will not record you as good as they are if they don't finish this. If they finish this, yeah, they'll be regarded as the best team in Eagles history. And I'm not going back to 1960. I'll say modern history.
Super Bowl era, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but they got to finish it. They got to finish it. And they have the deeper and more talented team. And that's the reason they're favorite. People have kind of woken up to that and said, wait a minute, look at these rosters. And I think that's why, getting back to your original point, that's why he's so comfortable. He knows it.
Understood. And I agree the Eagles are favorite. By the way, it's 1.5 at almost every wagering outlet. Some places it opened up with Kansas City actually a half-point favorite. The line moved pretty quickly. It has gotten as high as 2, but it's sitting at 1.5 right now and has been steady that way for a good day and a half now. And I think it will stay very close, up to 3, down to 1. I do not think it's going to move much either way leading up to the game. That's favoritism, but it's not overt favoritism. This is not a bad Kansas City Chief team that they're going to be taking on in the Super Bowl, J-Mac. They, too, went 14-3, same as the Eagles. Had to work a little bit harder to get to the Super Bowl, but between you and I, they had a little bit of a tougher task. I would say the Jaguars were better than the Giants, and the Bengals were certainly better than the 49ers, or what showed up here and whined in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. So, it's not like, why are we even playing this game? The Eagles are a better team. They're just matchups. Oh, no, this Kansas City Chiefs team's darn good, and it's 1.5 for a reason. These two teams are evenly matched. If you say they're not even, one's got to be ahead of the other. I'm with you. It's got to be Philadelphia. They've played better. The roster looked better. They've gotten the postseason accolades. But it's darn close between these two teams.
Oh, Kansas City's tremendous. I mean, I can't see enough good things about Andy Reid. I mean, we know his history in Philadelphia, right? If he beats, he's the all-time winningest coach in Eagles history. If he beats the Eagles in the Super Bowl, ironically, he will be the all-time winningest coach in Kansas City history. He's a top 5 coach of all time. So number one, you start with that. You know they're going to be prepared. We always talk. We always knew about Andy here when he had the bye week, the extra week of preparation. I mean, he's always prepared. He's always got his team ready to go. And they have the best player in the world in Patrick Mahomes at the most important position. Thankfully for the Eagles, he's not 100%. He's not going to be 100%. But I mean, he's when you have Patrick Mahomes, you have a chance to win every game. And it was like Aaron Rodgers in his prime. I always describe how spoiled the Green Bay fans were. They thought they would win every game, and they had the right to think that way because that's the guy they had at quarterback. Now Kansas City's got that guy. So their fans are the same way. They expect to win every game. They think they're going to win every game, and they should think that way because that's how dominant Patrick Mahomes is. But they're a very top-heavy team. Their good players are really good. Chris Jones, really good player. Travis Kelce, really good player. But the Eagles are so deep and so strong everywhere. And Ed Kratz and I were putting together something with top 15 players in the Super Bowl, and you start to look at, boy, I'm looking at these rosters, and it's like, all right, Kansas City's tremendous at the top, and then it's like Eagles, just so deep. And that's, but if you got the home run hitter and the home run hitter has a big day, you're in trouble.
Want to give you a stat that I saw from my buddy Bob Vitrone Jr., who everyone should follow on Twitter at Boop Stats. If you've heard him before with me on WIP, he's going on with Big Daddy all the time. He's one of the best stat crunchers around, not just Philadelphia, but nationally as well, in my opinion. He put out a great stat for Eagle fans. And, oh, by the way, Boop is a Chief fan. He's a Chiefs/Eagle fan. He's got an AFC team. He's got an NFC team, and he roots for them both equally. So he's kind of.
I love Boop Stats. I love Bob, but I don't like the AFC NFC man. I'm gonna say that right off.
You have to choose.
Yes, you gotta have one favorite team. If you're a fan, you gotta have one favorite team.
And your favorite team would be what, John?
I don't have a favorite team.
Oh, okay. No, wait. Didn't you just say you have to have a favorite team?
No, I said if you were a fan. You missed the first part. If you are a fan, you have to have one favorite team, in my opinion.
And my opinion is, for a guy who says he doesn't have a favorite team, I'm not sure you can sit in judgment of how someone else decides who they are a fan of. But that's just my opinion. I'll give you the Boop stat that I no idea on, which kind of should buoy Eagle fans. You mentioned how good Andy Reid is on the bye. For his entire career, Andy Reid playing a team after a bye who hasn't come on a bye themselves is 28-3. That's unheard of, John. No one could be that good at anything with that big a sample size. 28-3 is like incomprehensible to be so good at something. But that is when Andy Reid's team is coming off a bye and the other team isn't. If you look at when Andy Reid's team is coming off a bye and the other team is coming off a bye as well, Andy's only 2-3. And that includes a Super Bowl win
5 times.
That's Super Bowl loss. It happened twice, weirdly, in the regular season against, believe it or not, the Atlanta Falcons. When Andy was here in Philadelphia 2 years in the 8th week of the season, not only was it the same team, not only was the other team on a bye in front of them the same week they were, it was the same exact team. It was the Falcons in week 8. And they split those 2 games. And Andy, of course, has lost twice in the Super Bowl and won only once. So when the other team also has a bye, Andy's only 2-3. That's not near as good as 28-3, which is immeasurable. You just can't even contemplate how good you can be at something. And Andy Reid has done that. But, oh, by the way, the Eagles are coming off the bye. So he's actually below 500 in that.
I would say in that particular statistic, I would say the 28-3 is more important to me because it's the large sample size. When you start talking about the Super Bowl, you start talking about great teams. So, sometimes you're up against it in the Super Bowl. I'm talking about right now with the Eagles versus the Chiefs. The Eagles have the better personnel, the better roster, the better team. But what I'm saying, what that 28-3 tells you emphatically is Kansas City's going to be prepared. You might beat them, but they're going to be prepared. And that's to me the genius of Andy Reid, that as a coach, his team is always prepared, and you're not going to out prep them. And that's one of the strengths, at least from the Eagles' perspective, that they think they have typically. It's not going to be a strength here. They might be even. They might be just as prepared. But boy, I mean, His record is his record. You know, and if you go back to 2012, which is interesting because Nick was there and everybody thinks it goes one way, but Nick was in Kansas City. Nick's first professional job was in Kansas City. He met his wife there. He talked about that in his press conference. It's a very important city for him and very important organization for him, as well as Andy with Philadelphia. So it's so interesting, the storylines. But, you know, 2012, Nick's last year in Kansas City, and Andy came in 2013. Kansas City won 2 games. 2 games. Andy comes in, they win 11 games. That might be, forget about the Super Bowls, the playoff wins, that's unbelievable. To go from 2 to 11 in 1 year. You know, they started making better decisions, better organization, better coaching staff. But he's been in Kansas City 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years now. They've won 10 games or more 9 of those years. The 1 year they didn't, they were 9-7. I mean, the consistency, I talk about it at quarterback, that to me defines, I would say Peyton Manning is the best regular season quarterback of all time because of the consistency of his teams. Just when he started rolling, double-digit wins, on and on and on and on. Same thing with coaching. Andy Reid's amazing.
10 seasons, no losing seasons. That speaks for itself. That's just tremendous consistency, as you say, and that's why he probably is a top 5 coach of all time. So the Eagles have their work cut out for him. Nick Sirianni's got his work cut out for him. He's going up against an all-timer who we know pretty damn well here in Philadelphia. I liked what I heard out of Nick yesterday. Again, I would have loved to have a little nugget I could sink my teeth into, maybe a piece of game plan, what they see about Kansas City and where there might be an No, he wasn't going to give you any of that. He wasn't going to give out any bulletin board material. He's become pretty suave in just 2 years on the job here in Philadelphia. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That makes this Mac and Mac, Birds 365. We got 2 good guests coming your way today. Diehard Philadelphians. One would be Martin Frank. He's going to jump in about 4 or 5 minutes from now. And then hour number 2, our boy Rob Ellis from Sports Take here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel is also going to give us his Eagle insight. Mac and Mac Birds 365. Stay with us.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades, no judgment zone for credit issues, the best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Owner Appreciation Event.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
We rely on each other every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
With John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. You got Mac and Mac Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. If you want to hit that like button, feel free to go ahead and do so right about now. I like it when our next guest joins us. Always fun to talk Eagles football with Martin Frank from the Delaware News Journal. Martin, certainly we want to get your read on the matchup between the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But first, a quick look back. Why do you think it was that the NFL decided that the Philadelphia Eagles should be in the Super Bowl and therefore rigged the championship game against the San Francisco 49ers so as to get the Birds into the big game this year? You got any thoughts as to why the NFL, either through the referees or the scoreboard operator, the Jumbotron operator who didn't show Kyle Shanahan a good enough replay to challenge Devontae Smith's catch? When did this major plan all get hatched and come together at 345 Park Avenue?
Yeah. You know what? I think it was hatched over the summer. I mean, look at all the Eagles. Look at all the quarterbacks the Eagles didn't play this year. You know, the fourth string guy against the 49ers. You know, they missed Dak Prescott. You know, all the other guys along the way. You know. I mean, come on! It was obvious. They were in from the start.
Yeah,
you know, it was the whole season was set up, and you know, Devontae Smith obviously didn't catch that ball, but the NFL they didn't put the replay up in time for Kyle Shanahan to throw the challenge flag. It was just a whole big conspiracy. This is like JFK, basically.
Yeah. It's like the moon landing because, you know, Brock Purdy, when he's going to have surgery, they gotta fix that whole thing to make it seem like it's real. And then, you know, it's ironic. Jody and I are wrestling guys, pro wrestling guys, Martin. So, you know, this is a great turn from the NFL, babyface turn in Philadelphia, because typically they're against the Eagles, I'm told. Every week, the announcers hate the Eagles, you know, but now they're for the Eagles. I don't know who to believe, Martin. Who to believe? They all of a sudden they love the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, I can't understand why. I guess they don't want Patrick Mahomes going against like a third or fourth string quarterback. They want the Eagles in there.
You know, maybe you tapped into something. They didn't want to see that. They didn't want to see Patrick Mahomes against Brock Purdy. Even if he was healthy. That would have been a good story, though. That would have been a good story.
Yeah, Brock Purdy was a pretty good story. I know no one wanted to acknowledge it here in Philadelphia because he was coming in town to take on the Eagles, but nationally, that was a pretty good story.
That would have worked. I take it back. I quickly take it back.
I don't know. I think it ran its course, though. I mean, you know.
Well, it certainly ran its course on the sixth play of the game when Tyler Kroft is trying to block Hassan Reddick. Let's start there. Hassan Reddick, he has been unblockable in the postseason. What a tremendous year. We all talk about A.J. Brown, and I think A.J. was the final piece of the puzzle offensively. But Hassan Reddick on the defensive side, every bit as important. Who's a bigger part of the success here, Howie Roseman or Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff?
Wow, it's a good question. I mean, like everything Howie touched this year, like turned into gold, basically. Yeah. You know, you trade for A.J. Brown, you out and sign Hassan Reddick, you sign James Bradbury. I mean, that guy became a Pro Bowl corner. It's been incredible. Like, and it's kind of like the 2017 season. Every offseason move Howie made that year turned into gold, basically, too. You know, you Patrick Robinson, you have the running backs, LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. You know, it just all came together. I mean, they both had great years. Sirianni as well, you know, coaching the team to, you know, turning Jalen Hurts into an MVP quarterback. You know, Hurts went 14-1 during the regular season. Just, yeah, everything worked out great. I mean, you couldn't have designed it any better for the Eagles this year. It's been quite a season for everyone involved, top to bottom, definitely.
And another plus for the Eagles is, and they may have Shane Steichen having to take a meeting over the next 24, 48 hours with the Colts, but that's going to be it. Jonathan Gannon here to stay. I would say Steichen is on the outside looking in of getting that Colt job. 3 weeks ago, I think if we had you on and we did a spot, we would have said Eagles are guaranteed to lose at least one of their coordinators, if not both of their coordinators. Right. Now it looks like they're both going to end up staying. Does that say anything about the Eagles? Is it just good luck? Is it the fact that the people are actually acknowledging Sirianni as the leader of this group? What do you make of the fact that neither of the Eagle coordinators look like they're going to get an off-season head coaching job?
I think it's just a circumstance. I mean, these guys, you know, they're still pretty young. You know, if this was a year ago, I think, you know, the Houston Texans wanted to hire Gannon, but, you know, went with Lovie Smith. And then this year, D'Amico Ryans, he's a former Texans player. He's well liked down there, did a great job with the 49ers defense as well. I mean, you know, he was obviously the pick over Jonathan Gannon. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think next year, both those guys are going to be in demand again. You know, and you never know. I mean, strange things happen. Kind of surprised the Chargers haven't made a move, but maybe, you know, that could still possibly happen if Steichen's the guy they want. You know, there are a lot of things.
They hired? They brought over Kellen Moore.
I think about 20 minutes after he was fired by the Cowboys. Yeah, they hired him pretty fast. I thought that was a good hire by them.
Yeah. And you know, he probably wanted to be with Justin Herbert. We'll see if they can get something going with a better offensive mind. But I think, you know, it's great. The Eagles are probably going to keep their coordinators, which is good. You know, fans who don't like JG, it's very good. But there's still some dominoes to fall. These new coaches, and we still have to see what happens in Indianapolis and Arizona. They have to populate their staffs, and all of a sudden, well, you don't have room to promote a Brian Johnson. So somebody might be coming for Brian Johnson as a potential offensive coordinator, maybe Kevin Patullo, maybe Denard Wilson on the defensive side of the ball. So they still could lose some coaches. We'll have to see how that shakes out. You can't block guys from taking coordinator jobs. You used to be able to do that in the past. So it's not done yet, but it's looking very, very positive. And hey, if other teams, remember, teams looking for coaches are usually bad teams, bad organizations. Houston, we all like D'Amico Ryans. We remember him from Philadelphia, but they've made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and they won't let the GM make the decision. So that's why Jonathan Gannon isn't the head coach down there. So good for the Eagles. You know, bad organizations make bad decisions. Isn't that's good for Philadelphia?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, continuity is the best friend, you know, for the Eagles. I mean, they've had Gannon and they've had Steichen for 2 years in a row. You've seen the difference that it's made from last year to this year. I mean, Brian Johnson's been great with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I mean, they go back. You know, I think Jalen Hurts' father coached Brian Johnson in high school, so they've known each other since Jalen Hurts was like a kid. So, yeah, I mean, if you can keep these guys together as long as possible, Denard Wilson, you know, people rave about him as a defensive backs coach. He's probably going to be a defensive coordinator, his next job, whether that's replacing Gannon if he leaves next year, or somewhere else. I mean, as long as you keep these guys together. I mean, Stoutland's the best offensive line coach in the NFL. I mean, I'm sure somebody would love to hire him, but so far he's stayed with the Eagles, going back all the way to the Chip Kelly era. So, it's great as long as you keep these guys together. That's what they want to do. But it's, like you said, when you have a top team that's in the Super Bowl, other teams are going to want to poach your guys. I mean, look at Andy Reid in Kansas City. He's had several guys come and go, and he's still back there every year. So what can you say? It's a good situation to have. You want your guys to be in demand, but you also want to keep them.
I think that's one of the things that makes Andy Reid a Hall of Fame coach is his coaching tree. That guys come off Andy Reid's staff and go elsewhere and win. He might be the best coach in the history of the national, number one for developing coaches for other places. You got to stick around a long time to do that. And then he's done just that, but you got to give him the credit he's earned. And two other guys who've earned credit, we've been lopping credit on top of them, and they deserve it because they earned it, are both Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman. As we give credit to this staff as good as it is, this is Sirianni's staff. And the reason that Doug Peterson's no longer here, one of the main reasons is they had so much trouble between Doug and his staff and who to promote and who to let go and who to move on. They could never get on the same page completely, Peterson and Howie / Jeffrey. They gave Sirianni a lot of latitude in putting his staff together. A lot of these guys on these staffs have Sirianni ties. It wasn't, Stoutland was we're keeping Jeff Stoutland. You're going to learn to love Jeff Stoutland, Nick Sirianni. But he put this staff together, and for a guy who had no head coaching experience, that's pretty damn impressive. And I think you got to give Howie credit because Howie let him do it. They said, all right, Nick, what do you got for us? Who do you want on your staff? And they put together a staff that's been unbelievably good for 2 straight years. Both guys got to get credit for that, do they not, Martin?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember when Sirianni was hired and he named his coordinators, and everyone was like, well, why would he hire a first-time defensive coordinator in Jonathan Gannon? He's not, Sirianni's not a defensive guy. He should get like a veteran guy, like a Jim Schwartz.
Well, the Eagles hired Gannon before they hired Sirianni, so that wasn't a Sirianni.
I mean, I remember like when Doug Peterson got hired, like within like 5 minutes, they announced, oh yeah, Jim Schwartz is going to be his defensive coordinator. And, I mean, he was handpicked for Doug, a veteran guy and new defense. And, to Howie's credit or Nick's credit, he found the right guy in Jonathan Gannon. Like everyone kind of saw him as an up and coming defensive coach. And sure enough, Nick hired him, took a chance. The guy's like 40 years old and here he is. So yeah, I mean, they kind of went like the unconventional route. They didn't go with the veteran defensive coordinator type, and it worked out for them. And, credit to everybody involved for that.
Yeah, that was strange. Nick had a good explanation for that, though. He was like, I think we all, because I was one of those people, I was like, he's got to get some experience on this coaching staff.
I'm right with you on that.
And he's like, well, you can do it other ways. He constantly would talk to Frank Reich and, Mike McCoy that first year, who he's with in San Diego. So it's not like you can't text and call people for advice. They're just not in the building. And he did a good job with that. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan was, under Shane Steichen is only 37 now, I think 37, 38. So tremendously young coaching staff. Michael Clay was the youngest coordinator in the NFL. Nick Rollis was the youngest position coach in the NFL. So it worked. But yeah, there were some questions when the Eagles first put this staff together. So Nick Sirianni deserves a lot of credit. And you go all the way back to that 2-5 start, Martin. Man, things turned. Imagine if they lost 2 more in a row. People were already calling for this guy, saying he's not ready for this. They're throwing flowers at him. Where was that? They're throwing jerseys at him in Vegas. I forget where they threw the flowers at him.
Oh, that was at home, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was at home.
Yeah.
It could have went really bad. And all of a sudden, he gives up the play calling, and boom, like a shooting star. This team took off.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I went back. I was looking like the Eagles played the Chiefs like in week 4 last year, and I think at the time they were 1-2. They won that first game in Atlanta, and then they came home, lost to the 49ers. That was kind of a bad loss. They didn't play well on offense. And then I think can't remember, they lost to somebody else. And then here come the Chiefs, and you expect them to blow them out. I mean, the Eagles couldn't stop Mahomes, and he was incredible that day. He threw for like 5 touchdowns, but like Jalen Hurts had a career day. He threw for like almost 400 yards,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, 387. I think that's still his career high. I mean, they were going pretty much toe to toe with the Chiefs on offense and everything. And you kind of, I mean, yeah, they lost, and it kind of got a little away from them at the end. I think it was like 42-30, but they scored a late touchdown to make it a 12-point deficit. But like, I remember coming away from that game, it's like, wow, Jalen Hurts isn't that bad. I mean, he could possibly work out here. And sure enough, like, they get to 2-5 a few weeks later, and then they turn into a run-based offense, and, they end up making the playoffs, and then he just took off this year. But yeah, I think you could kind of start seeing the seeds of, maybe them turning it around. I mean, it got pretty close. Like you mentioned, when they were 2-5, everyone was calling for Jonathan Gannon's head. And that included one of the players. I mean, Fletcher Cox basically said, I can't play this defense. And, some teams, they listen to the star player instead of the, assistant coach, and the assistant coach is the one who leaves. But, to their credit, they held it together. They found a way, and they made it work. And Fletcher Cox ended up pretty happy. So, kudos to them again.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that the last opponent and the next opponent played within 3 weeks of each other last year. Lost to San Francisco, lost to Dallas in between, then came home and lost that Kansas City game. Yeah, not a great start for the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So let me ask you guys this one. Of the 2 major decisions that were made early in that season, 2-5-ish around that time, which one was nervier? Turning the play calling over to Shane Steichen, or basically coming out, they didn't say it, but they showed it by their example. We're going back and we're going to run the football. Sorry, we did the whole pass thing, and we're 2-5. Our strength is our offensive line. We need to play to our strength. We're going to try and run the football down people's throats, and that surely worked. Which one was a nervier call by Nick Sirianni?
I think it was going to the run-based offense. I mean, a lot of this NFL's a pass-first league. I mean, every team wants to throw the ball up and down the field and everything. And the Eagles said, all right, we're scrapping everything. We're going to run the ball. I think that took a lot of nerve. And it was a gutsy decision because, if that didn't work, I mean, I don't think those guys would have lasted the season, to be honest with you. The defense was a mess. Like I mentioned before, Fletcher Cox was pretty much upset with the defensive coordinator. And, that's how mutinies start, basically. On a lot of teams, like the star player kind of, especially one who's close to the general manager. I mean, Howie Roseman raves about Fletcher Cox. Jeffrey Lurie's a big Fletcher Cox fan. I mean, he could have overthrown the ship right then and there. And, if the switch to the run-based offense didn't work, maybe it would have happened. I mean, I'm not sure if those guys would have lasted the season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how close it was, Martin, to turning in a negative direction. And part of it, we talked about the youth. Part of it was the youth, because it's easy to say, well, these guys don't know what the hell they're doing. They got no experience. Why are they in this position? And, to make that change, and to make the change in the philosophy, and essentially they built the offense around Jalen Hurts better. Stop trying to make him drop back passer, 11 personnel. And I always joke now, it's not a run-based offense, not a pass-based offense. It's a Jalen Hurts-based offense. That's what they did. They tailored the offense around the quarterback. And I think that's difficult for some coaches. We just saw one. We've been talking about it on this show, Martin. Kyle Shanahan. He likes to show off with all the movement and look at me. I'm a genius and I'm going to fool the other defense and I'm going to play action. And all of a sudden, Brock Purdy's getting surgery. The Eagles' offense is very simple. It's an RPO-based offense. It's very simple, and they don't get to show the I'm the biggest genius on the planet with the Bill Walsh playbook and the Cheesecake Factory playbook. I'm impressed by the lack of ego with this coaching staff. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about all these coaches that didn't work. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett didn't even last the full year in Denver. I mean, you got to get the players to buy in, and that's the key thing. And that's something, Sirianni did right from the start. I mean, when you have a guy like Jason Kelsey deciding to not retire and come back because he believes in the coaching staff and he believes in the quarterback, I mean, that says a ton. Brandon Graham, playing or coming back at the age of 34 after a torn Achilles. I mean, that says a ton about how they feel about the coaching staff and the team in general, for them to keep coming back, in these circumstances. I mean, Fletcher Cox was released after the end of the year for 3 days. He was a free agent. He could have gone anywhere. He came back for less money. I mean, still a lot of money, but he came back for less money because he wanted to be here, knowing also that he's probably not going to get as much playing time as he was getting before. And look at it. I mean, all these guys bought in, and it's just an incredible thing with, how the Eagles have been so successful this year. You got established veterans accepting this young coaching staff and buying into what they're selling and believing in it. I mean, you see that all across the board. It's really been a remarkable thing this year.
Martin, I've asked this of everybody, in leading up to other Kansas City Chief games on my national show here on Birds 365 when I'm on WIP. Any team that's facing the Kansas City Chiefs, why don't they cover Travis Kelce? It seems to me like he's open every play, and not just open, like wide open. You can't see a defender in the picture on TV. We all know he's the best pass catching tight end in the NFL. He's Kansas City's number one weapon. Yet somehow he gets wide open. What will the Philadelphia Eagles do differently than everybody else has been doing all year long?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, everybody knows that the ball is going to be going to Travis Kelce, but I have no idea why that happens. But every time you watch one of their games, he's wide open 20-30 yards down the field, over the middle of the field. I mean, it's kind of Goddard to some extent, but not nearly as good as, or not yet at Travis Kelce's level. I mean, and you got a quarterback who gets him the ball, all these different arm angles. I think that's part of it too. If it was just an average quarterback, maybe you sack that quarterback before he gets it off, or maybe you hit his arm, or, but Patrick Mahomes has these incredibly weird arm angles where he could he could throw a sidearm pass. He can spin and throw in the same motion. I think a lot of times it's Mahomes keeping those plays alive long enough for Travis Kelce to get open. And, the Chiefs have always had great wide receivers too. So you got to keep an eye on those guys too. You can't obviously sleep on guys like Hardman and, Smith-Schuster and Valdez-Scantling now. So it's really remarkable how they always find ways to get Travis Kelce open. I totally agree with you on that. It's crazy.
Yeah, especially without Tyreek Hill. By the way, Tom Brady announced his retirement again. We're good. We'll see. By the way, I think this was the 1-year anniversary of his first retirement. So we'll see if we have a second 1-year a 1-year anniversary of a second unretirement. But he claims it's for good. I just wanted to throw that out there. But when it comes to Andy Reid, obviously you know very well, Martin. Boy, man, I look at this. I told Jody in 2012, it was interesting because, Nick Sirianni was in Kansas City on that staff, and they won 2 games. And, Nick went into Andy, and Andy had David Culley, eventually became the head coach in Houston, long time wide receiver coach, assistant head coach. And he told Nick he had his guy, and good luck, basically, and heard good things about Nick Sirianni, but, Nick had to go his separate ways and ultimately landed on his feet in San Diego. But of all the things, and there's so many things you can point to with Andy Reid, all the championship games, all the wins. That next year, Kansas City goes from 2 wins without Andy Reid to 11 wins with Andy Reid. This is one of the best coaches of all time. Is that fair to say? Is that hyperbole?
Oh no, it's fair to say. I mean, the guy's an offensive genius. Great coach. They've gotten at least as far as the AFC Championship game in each of the last 5 seasons. I mean, that's like Belichickian. He had that stretch. I think that the Patriots got to 7 straight AFC Championship games, maybe like won 3 Super Bowls during that time. They didn't win a 4th, obviously, because that was the Eagles. But still, you don't see those kind of runs anymore. There's just too much parity in the NFL. The salary cap is what it is. You can't keep teams together. I mean, what the Chiefs have done since Andy Reid has gotten there is incredible. I think he missed the playoffs just once.
10 years, 9 double-digit win seasons, and the 1 year he didn't, he won 9. So he's still over 500.
Right.
9 playoffs, 5 straight championship games.
It's remarkable. And I mean, just compared to what, and the Eagles are probably like, I think I saw something where like they're one of maybe 4 or 5 teams that have been to 3 Super Bowls since 2004. So, what the Chiefs have done is just incredible. You look at, what the Eagles went through since their last Super Bowl. I mean, they pretty much tore down the entire team, changed coaches. They made the playoffs in a couple of those years, but barely sneaked in for 2 of them. And here they are back. I mean, what they had to go through just to get back to this point 5 years later, which is remarkable in itself. But yet the Chiefs have been there like every year, I would put Andy Reid definitely on that.
And
Mount
Jody
Rushmore
was talking about his
NFL
coaching
coach.
tree earlier. 11 Andy Reid assistants becoming head coaches in the NFL. 11.
That's unheard of. No other coaches even in close to that neighborhood. I think
Belichick's not.
11. Oh, I guarantee you, I'm taking the under. You're setting the under at 10.5. Oh, I take the under.
I mean, even the ones that have become coaches haven't had much
tremendous success. And there's, a lot of Andy. And started with Brad Childress. He made the playoffs, but wasn't a great head coach. John Harbaugh has been a very good head coach. Steve Spagnuolo.
Ron Rivera
he'll be
went
the
to a
defense
Super Bowl.
coordinator. Leslie Frazier wasn't a great head coach, great coordinator. Ron Rivera, pretty good head coach at times. Pat Shurmur, not the best head coach, great coordinator. Todd Bowles, great coordinator, not the best head coach.
Right.
Doug Peterson, we all know Doug. Sean McDermott's been a solid head coach. Matt Nagy. It was very good early, but kind of fell
There's
apart.
a bunch of Super Bowl appearances in there, Johnny Mac, of the names you just ran down.
And David Culley, who I just mentioned, had the 1 year. That wasn't his fault. I mean, that's a nonsense organization, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely better than Belichick's tree. I mean, those guys haven't had any success as head coaches, not that I can think of. So
his best success is his former player in Tennessee, who wasn't really a coach under Belichick, but we'll give him half credit on that one.
And can we give Andy credit for D'Amico Ryans? He had D'Amico.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, definitely.
If you're gonna go there with Belichick, you should go there with Reid too. All right. I just noticed this, Martin, and shame on me that I hadn't noticed it earlier. How many times did the Eagles run the ball against San Francisco last week?
Man. I already forgotten that game.
Yeah.
That was such a nonsense game, but I can look it up real quick.
Let's see. I know Kenny Gainwell led him with 48 yards. I think he had maybe 14 carries.
Yeah,
I think Hurts had
44,
like 11.
44
and,
times.
I think Miles had about 11 or 12 as well. So that's what, 35 maybe?
Yeah, 44.
44.
Official number.
44 running attempts. Would you like to take a guess how many times they ran the ball against the New York Giants the week before?
A crap load.
Much less.
No.
Well, they ran for 268. So.
Oh wait, yeah, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I was sorry. I was thinking about that last regular season game.
Yeah.
So probably about the same, right?
44. They've run the ball 44 times, 2 consecutive games, 2 consecutive blowout wins. Can they run it 44 times against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl with the same exact result?
Well, they might try. I mean, sometimes the best offense against the Chiefs is to keep them off the field. So if you can control the ball and keep Pat Mahomes off the field, keep him from having the chance to throw to Travis Kelce, that's not a bad formula. So for that to happen, I mean, they got to get an early lead. They did that both against the Giants, and the 49ers. So, and then once you do that, they have the running game that can kind of keep the ball and everything like that. So, yeah, I think if they ran the ball 44 times against the Chiefs, I think Eagles fans would be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that means you're going to blow them out is basically
Yeah.
what that means, because that means you got a big lead late and you're just running out the clock, and that's how those things kind of manifest itself. So I'll leave it there with you. M. Frank NFL, Martin Frank, the great Martin Frank, DelawareOnline.com. You can read them there. I was looking at the rosters of these two teams, and Ed Kratz, your buddy and mine, we're putting together a top 15 list of players in the Super Bowl. And I'm like, wow, I mean, Kansas City has some really good players at the top. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, we mentioned a little bit. But man, the Eagles are much, much deeper than this team. If there is going to be a blowout, it's got to be an Eagles blowout, don't you think, Martin?
Yeah. I like the Chiefs defense. I mean, I think Chris Jones is amazing. He could be every bit as much of a game wrecker as Hassan Reddick. But beyond that, like there are things the Eagles can exploit. And on the other side, they're going to go after Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I know Andy Reid's philosophy is always to have a great offensive line, and they do have a strong offensive line, and they'll try to protect them and stuff. But, if there's any way the Eagles defense can find a way to slow down Patrick Mahomes a little bit, I think the Eagles will be able to score on them. And if that's the case, then they can run away with this for sure.
Martin, are you heading out to Arizona, or are we going to be able to get you up next week leading up to the game as well? Or when we call you at 5:20 in the morning, are you going to go, oh, it's Birds 365. I'm not answering that phone. Get the hell out of here.
Martin's not answering the phone.
I can't
I'll
be
blame
in
him.
Arizona, heading out there on Sunday and everything. So,
Yeah.
I might still be on East Coast time. So if you want to get me at 5:20 in the morning, we'll see. I might pick up.
We will at least make the attempt. Martin,
We'll do at least. We'll wait till 6:20, Martin. All
right. Well, even better.
Martin, we appreciate whenever you come on. Thanks for doing it today. And yeah, maybe we'll talk to you next week from Arizona.
All right. My pleasure. And yeah, I can't guarantee I'll pick up the phone, but sure. We'll see.
Yeah, with our luck, we'll call Martin. Will be out for a walk at 6:20 in the morning. We get screwed by Martin Frank's exercises. Martin, thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys.
Frank covers the Eagles for the Delaware News Journal. Jumping in with us here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac told you NFL news, not necessarily Eagle news. But well, we can spin it into Eagle news. Tom Brady officially retires. He did so. And if you remember, Johnny Mac, you and I were here last year when it happened. I was kind of surprised that Brady retired because he didn't announce it. Adam Schefter announced it. And I'll stand by this. And maybe Brady will do a tell-all documentary a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, where he may cop to it. I think he came back and played last year because he was like,
spite him.
Yeah. You're not telling me when I'm retired. I'm telling you when I'm retired. I think that added to his decision to come back and play last year. I really do. So I'm not surprised a little bit that he on social media announced his own retirement to beat Adam Schefter and or any of the other NFL insiders to say whether Brady is or isn't playing again this year. It doesn't surprise me that he's retiring. But it does have a residual effect on Eagles and every other team in the National Football League. Like him, love him, hate him, whatever. He was still a viable quarterback in this league this past year. He did a good job for the Bucs. The Bucs defense got old. Their offensive line started falling apart. There's a reason that they lost in the playoffs this year to the Cowboys. It wasn't Tom Brady. That's just one less quarterback in the NFL. I'll tell you guys who are happy today. Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, if he wants out of Green Bay, the open quarterback market just got deleted by one, which means anybody who's going to be on it, their value just went up a little bit because Tom is no longer a factor with any of those teams. Maybe even a guy like Gardner Minshew, who will be hitting the open market. When we talk about the Eagle free agents, John, do we ever get the Gardner Minshew on the list?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's not going to be back. I mean, but he's way down on the list. I don't think anybody's concerned about it, but the Eagles are probably concerned about it because we talk about it all the time. They value the backup quarterback position, rightfully so, more than most. And again, bad organizations, they don't think about things like that. And but he wants a chance and an opportunity to be a starter somewhere. And maybe he does, but, and I'm a bigger Gardner guy than you are. We've had this discussion in the past. I've always said, look, I think he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world, only because there aren't 32 good quarterbacks. And, once you get down to that bottom five, there's some pretty bad quarterbacks. What you can't do, though, is sell Gardner Minshew to your fan base as the long-term answer. So, nobody's going to go after Gardner Minshew and this is our starter. This is, they're not going to do that. But if they can't get Aaron Rodgers and they can't get Derek Carr and they can't get somebody in the draft and they're up against it, it might be plan C or plan D for a year or two. And then when you get on the field, the luxury of playing time is nobody is taking you off the field if you play well. So then it's up to you. That's what happened with Jalen Hurts. I got news for people. The Eagles were not only looking at Russell Wilson, not only looking at Deshaun Watson. There's a reason why they kicked that first-round pick back a year, because they didn't like this draft like everybody else at the quarterback position. It was their insurance policy, their safety net. There's a reason they did all this. But what Jalen Hurts got was another year, the opportunity to be on the field with a really good team. He took off. Now he's going to make, insert number, $40 million a year, whatever it ends up being. If you're on the field, and I'm not trying to compare Gardner Minshew to Jalen Hurts because he's not going to be Jalen Hurts, but I'm comparing the opportunity. If you're on the field and you play well, nobody's taking you off the field. Same thing with Brock Purdy. If he continued to play well, Trey Lance, third overall pick. All right, F you. I always talk about F you players. If you play well, nobody's taking you off the field.
That is very true, and your description of Jalen Hurts is very much on point. Yeah, I'll go ahead and predict that that's not happening for Gardner Minshew. If he gets the opportunity somewhere else, he won't be the next Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy or anybody else for that reason who snatched that opportunity and made the most of it. He'll snatch it and he'll just hand it right back again because I'm not a fan of his game. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald, the Mac guys here on Birds 365. We'll come back. We'll continue the Chiefs, the Eagles conversation, even the Brady conversation, and we will have a conversation with one Rob Ellis coming up in less than 20 minutes if you stay here on Birds 365.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades, no judgment zone for credit issues, the best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Owner Appreciation Event.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
We rely on each other every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming on in with us. If you want to hit the like button, we won't tell you not to. You can show your guys some love here if you so desire. We got an hour or less than an hour now, 55 minutes left to play with you today. And Rob Ellis is going to jump in about 15 minutes or so. Always like talking it up with Robbie E. from the Sports Take and the Eagles postgame show on their radio network. Johnny Mac did want to get your thoughts on this. Eagles made a front office addition yesterday. Adam Berry is coming to the Philadelphia Eagles, not to be confused with his brother Andrew Berry, who defected the Eagles last year to go to the Browns and become their general manager. I guess he's going to be in the business side of things, coming in from Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, yeah.
Do you think the Empire State Building going to the green lights was the sign for Adam Berry to come to Philadelphia and help the Eagles going forward in their front office?
Yeah, they're twins, by the way. Adam and Andrew. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have always been sort of forward thinking when it comes to both the business side of things and the analytics side of things. They've always been sort of one of the leaders in the league when it comes to that aspect. I think the latter is more important when it comes to the football side, which is what fans are generally more interested in. Judging by his history, I would think, he's going to be more of a business guy, but it might be analytics. So we're just going to have to wait and see how that shakes out. I think it's the only reason it's news is because of his brother, obviously. Sure. But we got to see what he's going to do and what his job responsibility is. But I think this is more of obviously Andrew was, executive vice president of football operations. He was here for a short time, but he was a big part of the organization. This is a more, lower level hire.
But that's just another thing. And I just mentioned in passing because I think it's unique that they're hiring a former head of football operations twin brother to come in. And it would be interesting to see what position he holds down. But it allowed me to say, I guess they got over losing his twin brother and all the other executives that the Eagles lost last year. You and I did like weeks of, the Eagles lose another executive. Can't be happy about the fact that this executive is left to take a job elsewhere. It was some legit concern that we're worried about the Eagles coaching staff being rated this offseason. Hasn't happened yet. Last year, the Eagles front office staff got rated pretty good. They lost a bunch of people, and yet here they are in the Super Bowl. So that, again, shows strength of the organization. I know I kind of made fun of Jeff Flory a couple of years ago when in one of his very rare public speaking appearances about the Eagles said, yeah, and we're a general manager factory too. We've got 3 or 4 or 5 guys in the front office who can be general managers. Well, he was right. They did. They had a bunch of people leave the organization for better gigs.
And by the way, Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown, 2 of those guys got GM interviews this offseason. So they are getting their assistant GMs. They're getting a lot closer to, proving Jeffrey Lurie correct. But I think, that's still to be determined, to be honest, those losses. Because, we always talk about the calendar in the NFL and the off season, Howie season versus Nick season. We're still in Nick season. By the way, the Senior Bowl is going on right now. Thankfully, we're not talking about it. Most teams are focused in on the Senior Bowl and trying to get ready for the draft. And we're going to get to all that stuff, but we get to kick it down the road for a little bit. Eagles still got to do, juggle both balls, but they're on different calendars. So, the Eagles were upset about, especially Brandon, because, he went to the Giants and the Giants are trying to tap into the way the Eagles do business and all that kind of stuff, division rival. But Ian as well. And Catherine Raish and who went out, she was very close to Andrew Berry. She went out to Cleveland. So they lost a lot of front office talent. And how we kind of used it to reset the organization. And he gave out, one of the problems, he never gave out that assistant GM tag. Never, titles, it's more about responsibilities, I always joke, but titles are very important to people.
Yeah, they are.
And he never gave it out. And he lost guys, maybe perhaps because he never wanted to give it out. So he finally gave it out, and he gave it to Alec Halaby, who is the analytics guy, and he gave it to John Ferrari, who is the football ops guy. He's like the rules guy. He's like, all the machinations with the NFL, all the behind the scenes stuff. He didn't give it to a football guy.
Nope.
So I still think it's to be determined how that new system is shaken out. We'll get to see it this year for the first time in the lead up for the draft. Now, they still have plenty of football guys in there, but they're, they also lost. I should have brought up Andy Weidel first. They lost him because, he didn't want to give Andy the assistant GM title, which he got in Pittsburgh. But he gave it to Alec Calabi and John Ferrari. So they survived, but they survived on the work of those guys more than this new group you will see their fingerprints this year, not last year, this year upcoming is what I'm trying to say.
For the most part, yeah, certainly up to the draft. But you got to give those who stepped in some credit because the Bradbury signing was way after the draft. That was after all those executives had made their moves to other teams. Certainly the Gardner Johnson was right before the season started, and any of those in-season acquisitions for the stopping the run defensive tackles they got, that was the new Eagle front office. There's some examples of the fact that the guys they now have in place are ready to get the job done and have already gotten the job done.
Well, I give Howie credit for that. I mean, one of the things, the concern, I have to look it up. I don't even think they have a pro scouting guy right now with that title. And I'm trying to think. They have Dave Caldwell, who is a former GM, and he's a advisor to Howie, and Matt Russell's a former GM who's an advisor to Howie, but they're not in the building day to day. Then it would be Anthony Patch. I'm trying to look this up, but Anthony Patch is director of college scouting. Then I have Brandon Hunt, who's director of scouting. And they're like the top two sort of Andy Weidel people, best I could describe it. And then Max Gruder, director of pro scouting, which would be more of the Bradbury, Chauncey Gardner. But that's Howie, man. What Howie did, here's what I'm trying to say. Howie, it's all on Howie now. Like there's no give Joe Douglas credit, give Andrew Berry credit. It's all on Howie.
It's all on Howie,
and he made it that way. So long term, look, I said all the time. I've said for years, this is a top 10 general manager in the NFL. Now it's evident he's top 5. He's the top GM in the NFL this year. No doubt about it. I voted for him. Pro Football Writers Executive of the Year. He won it. He deserved to win it. But this is all on him. Not only this year, moving forward. It's all on him. He set it up that way on purpose.
Yeah, they didn't go overboard in hiring new people to replace those that they lost. Howie took on a bigger chunk of the responsibility. And guess what? Early results are in. Damn good job, Howie. Congratulations on your Executive of the Year award. That's impressive. All right. And yes, the Eagles need to be impressive against Kansas City Chiefs. They are a 1.5-point favorite in the game that is now 11 days down the road. Can't get here fast enough. We'll continue to talk about it, John and myself, and we'll get a helping hand. Rob Ellis, who you see right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel in the afternoons with Derek Gunn and Barrett Brooks on Sports Take. If you're an Eagles radio listener coming out of the games, put it on in the car afterwards. You get them on the Eagles post-game show on the Eagles Radio Network. Looking forward to shooting a breeze with Rob Ellis. He'll join us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades. No judgment zone for credit issues. The best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Owner Appreciation Event.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
We rely on each other every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Thanks for being part of Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We got one of our teammates to join us for the next 30 minutes or so. Here on Birds 365 is Rob Ellis from Sports Take and the Eagles postgame show on their radio network. Mr. Ellis, how are you this morning?
Max, what's going on, boys? How we doing?
Yeah, Rob Ellis. Good seeing you, buddy.
Ready to roll, baby. How do I get through this week is the first question. I'm chomping at the bit, John and Jody. I don't know, man. D Gunn makes fun of me all the time because Gunner's Mr. Chill guy. I'm fine. I got a million things going on. He makes fun of me because I'm always cranked up ready for these games. I'm all right. I'm okay this week, but I can see some problems early next week, guys, getting up, making it all the way to the finish line.
All right, give us more. What problems do you see for Rob Ellis and or the Philadelphia Eagles, if there are any?
It's more of a Rob Ellis problem than it is an Eagles problem.
I'm just double checking that. Yeah, I needed to confirm that.
No, you guys know it's great we get to do what we do because it does keep you sort of locked in and occupied, and you're trying to find fresh angles and let me look at this and what could be an advantage here, there, what's a problem, that kind of stuff. Definitely helps, but there's always that moment. I don't know about you guys during the day where you're like, man, there's 11 more days here, guy. It's the beauty is, I guess it helps both teams. I mean, from an Eagles standpoint, it helps you with Lane Dickerson, right? It helps you with whatever's going on with Hurts and some other guys who have some bumps and bruises. It certainly helps the Chiefs with Mahomes. But from a fan standpoint, the bye week is kind of a bummer. You want to keep that momentum going for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer, but it's baked in, and that's what makes the Super Bowl a little bit different. Nick is always, kind of preaching, hey, same as week 1 in Detroit, the preparation, nothing changes. He did admit yesterday it changes a little bit this week because it's over the 2 weeks we're talking about. Eagles are going to practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then they leave for Arizona Sunday. And then all the nonsense starts, as you mentioned, Rob. But you know, one thing about Nick, if you saw him yesterday in the Zoom call, he seems very relaxed. And Jody asked me about that. I want to get your take on this. I think he's relaxed because he knows he's got the best team every week.
Yeah, I mean, he's watched his team dominate this entire season. There's nothing fluky here. You know, what we're seeing here in the playoffs is what we saw really up until about the Chicago game. And the only question was, could they, hit that gear again? And they've hit it and then some. He knows how good his lines are. He knows that's where your bread's buttered. I mean, none of this is a big surprise to him. And the other thing is, I don't know if we collectively give him enough credit. We're looking at, because everybody's up in arms all the time about Gannon. By the way, the Gannon stuff's been really quiet lately. I've noticed, guys. Everybody wanted to run him out of town with the nonsense that he's not aggressive enough. How about 7 points per game in the playoffs? Yeah. I guess we're not hearing that anymore, but I digress.
And by the way, the non-aggressive, real quick defense knocked 2 quarterbacks out of the NFC Championship game. Right?
Yeah, and completely nullified Daniel Jones, one of the feel-good stories, of the season. But somehow I'm not hearing all the calls for this defense is tough to watch and fire Jonathan Gannon. But anyway, I don't know if we give him enough credit because we look to whatever it is with Gannon and Steichen and Stoutland. This guy has his team prepared, Nick Sirianni, every single week. He hits every right note with his players. I mean, more than anything else, maybe more than just a motivator and a connector, this guy's a hell of a coach, right? So, I mean, I think even though he doesn't have the experience as a coach in the Super Bowl, he's got some lieutenants who are there. Stoutland was there. He's got some players who have a carryover that can help him. And, he's always a guy who's open to counsel and talking to people. So I think he'll have his players ready. And you're right, John. Like, I don't worry about him. Like, he thoroughly outcoached Kyle Shanahan on Sunday. I don't worry about him going into this matchup. And that's with all due respect to Andy Reid. I have total respect for Andy Reid. But I think Nick Sirianni is going to be just fine in this setting.
And Sirianni with that gutsy call going for it on 4th down in his own territory. That took a little nerve right there. You got to give him props. He had 4th and 1, and Jalen Hurts is probably the best sneak quarterback in the National Football League. He wasn't like grasping for straws, but still. Is fumble the snap, ball goes to the ground. Oh, shoot, we're turning the ball over where? That was a little bit of a nervy call by Sirianni, which I think he deserves major props for. Yeah. All right, so it is a matchup between a guy who's been there and done that before in the Super Bowl. He's 1-2, but he does have a Super Bowl win. Nick's never even been there, and he addressed that a couple times. This is all what we all play for from the time we're 12 years old, right, is to get to this game. Now they're there. You don't think the experience edge to Andy Reid is going to have a factor in this game?
I'll tell you, I think maybe, Jody, in terms of just how everything's handled leading up to an extent. But once the game kicks off, and I respect Andy Reid mightily. I just think Sirianni and his coaching staff and the talent that this team has, I don't think you're going to see a situation where he gets outcoached. I really don't. I mean, I think it's going to be a matter of just executing. And the big thing with this game is the fear you have is Mahomes takes the ball over down 4 points, with a minute left. You can never, ever count the Chiefs out with that guy as the quarterback. I fear that more than I do how Sirianni's going to perform on the big stage, going against Andy Reid. I mean, this is 2 heavyweights. This is if you're the NFL and you're an unbiased fan and you're just sitting back and watching this thing, this is probably who you wanted, I would think. Even if your team's not in it, this
number
is who you
1 seed versus number 1 seed. I mean,
big boys.
That tells you everything. Yeah,
exactly.
But you mentioned the fact that the NFL set it up and threw the 49ers under the bus last week with a bad penalty call.
I'll tell you, the NFL
non-jumbotron shots so they can make decisions whether to challenge or not. Yeah, the NFL's dictated it, and they got it right.
It's amazing how they choreographed that thing perfectly. The way it led up to that play where Hassan Reddick hit him just in the right spot to destroy his elbow ligament. Yeah. I mean,
I think that's going to be. I think that's part of the conspiracy, Rob. That's the moon landing part of it. They're gonna have the big, surgery stage set up for Brock Purdy, pretend he's getting operated on,
right?
But it's all scripted. You mentioned that word preparation, though. I want to talk about that because Andy is the guy when it comes to preparation.
Yeah.
Jody brings up Bob Batrone, I believe.
Great stats.
Yes. Yeah, Boop Stats credit 28-3 on a bye week. Andy Reid, which is a pretty big sample size, and it tells you Not that the Eagles can't be prepared, but Kansas City is going to be prepared.
Yeah.
So, Andy Reid, I think he's a top 5 coach of all time. Are you in that category? Or are
I
you
am,
one
John.
of the?
To do what he's done, I really honestly thought when he left the Eagles, he should take a break. For a lot of reasons.
I think we all did.
Yeah. And, he climbed right back in that thing and got them going. I mean, he's now got more playoff wins with them than he did with the Eagles.
Yeah. Hey, what the most impressive part, real quick, Rob? When Nick Sirianni was there in 2012 in Kansas City, that team won 2 games. Andy comes in 2013. I was like you, he should probably take a step back. He had the family issues and all that. He wins 11 games. He takes a 2-win team to 11 immediately.
And John, there was a lot of stuff going on with that team too. Not to get into too much detail. You remember, there's a player in the parking lot. There was a lot of bad stuff that went on. And he immediately, like he did with the Eagles, it only took him really 2 years to get them righted after the mess it was at the end with Ray Rhodes. And yeah, I mean, Andy's one of those guys who's a quicker fixer-upper. And the thing is, he sustains too. The sustainability here with Kansas City is remarkable. I think what he's done is unbelievable. And he's innovative. He's not one of these older coaches who just sort of rests on his laurels. Like he wasn't afraid to incorporate the college stuff. He's not afraid. Hey, Patrick, what do you feel comfortable with? What do you do best? All right, let's utilize that. He's not a square peg round hole. And I give him a lot of credit for that for an older guy now who's been in the league for a long time, who could just say, hey, my system works. I've won a lot of games. You figure it out, young guy. And I think that's what has made him as good as he has, is his adaptability over the years. And it's something that I would think somebody like Sirianni or one of the relatively younger coaches in the league would look at and say, man, look at how this guy has evolved since 1999 to where he is now as a head coach. But yeah, make no mistake. I mean, from an offensive perspective, from a coaching perspective, the area, I'm sure you guys have talked about it a lot this week and will continue to. I just, other than Chris Jones and a couple players on the defensive side, I think you can score on this team. It's going to be a matter of the Eagles defense containing, not nullifying, but containing this offense of the Chiefs.
All right. If you need the hot take of the day, I'll give it to you right now. In 2033, Nick Sirianni signs on as to become the next head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. It just goes full circle again. He and his wife get to go back to Kansas City. It'll happen again. Andy Reid went there. Nick Sirianni will do the same thing, but not for a decade, Eagle fans. So
I hope I'm a guest that day, Jody, on Birds 365, when we all have our walkers out and we're what did you say? What did you say, Sonny?
Well, believe it or not, we got the tape. If you want to hear me say it again. All right, Rob Ellis, I'm sure you were eating your Cheerios when we had Martin Frank on, so you probably didn't hear this question. Last week against the San Francisco 49ers, the Eagles ran the ball how many times?
44.
The week before against the New York Giants in their blowout victory in the divisional round, the Philadelphia Eagles ran the ball how many times?
44?
44 and 44.
Yes.
If I tell you they run it 44 times against the Kansas City Chiefs, where will you be situated for the parade, Rob Ellis?
I will be, you know what my spot is, guys? This is my spot the last time. I took the kids. We got right on. It was brilliant, by the way. let me tear a rotator cuff. So what I did was I got right between on Patterson Avenue, where the SEPTA station is, NRG, I think, and Chickies and Live. I got right between both of those. And it was the first stop of the bus. And in fact, Jason Kelsey threw a T-shirt that my son, who was then in high school, caught. Or maybe he was in 8th grade. I don't know. He caught it anyway. And that's going to be my spot. But Jody, you're right. If they're running the ball 44 times, it means they're pounding it down the Chiefs' throat. And this is absolutely a win if that's the case.
That was that's a good spot because Jason wasn't all juiced up by that.
No, he was still he was in regular garb. It was pre-mummer, John. You want to catch Jason pre-mummer. That's the way you go. Yeah.
A quickie note, and I apologize, John and Rob. Last time I had the parade, I was in the parking lot to watch the buses leave, and then got in my car, went back across the bridge, sat in front of the TV, and watched everything come down from the Art Museum steps. Didn't stay. Got my car while they were rolling down Broad Street, but I wanted to get a good look at that.
I got out of there as quickly as possible. Now, originally they were going to let us go on, a bus or whatever they are, a truck, the flatbed. They were going to let the media do it like the Phillies did, I believe. The Eagles ended up didn't do that, so it wasn't even worth it. But from a media perspective, but obviously, it would be very exciting for the fans and to get there, Rob.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kansas City. They're a very top-heavy team. They got some great players. The best player in this game is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Let's all be honest. I mean, that is the biggest difference maker. Now, the Eagles get a little bit of a break, no matter even the extra week. High ankle sprain is a high ankle sprain. He's not going to be 100%. But he's a home run hitter.
Yeah.
And if he gets hot, they can beat anybody.
No doubt.
What do you have to do to contain Patrick Mahomes?
I think the best thing he does, John, and this is where he and Kelsey are brilliant together, because there's a lot of off-schedule stuff. There's a lot of stuff where it wasn't drawn up that way. And some of that is just innate, that those two have, just that connection, that telepathic connection that they have with one another. But I think that's where he kills you more than anything else. And this is where props to him for picking up that first down. And then, of course, there was the late hit. We all know what happened there. But that's the biggest thing, is if he's limited from a mobility standpoint, you just can't let him get loose to buy enough time to make those off-schedule plays. Easier said than done. There's got to be a level of contain there that I think it could be the game changer in this thing. And I will just real quick, and I'll get back to Mahomes, but on the defensive side, doesn't this feel a lot like the Niners in the sense that Chris Jones is great?
Chris Jones, yeah.
Bosa was great. If you just don't let him kill you, there's not a ton else there that's really going to hurt you on that side of the ball. That's really where I think the big advantage is for the Eagles.
It's interesting you bring that up, Rob, because I watched Dexter Lawrence against Minnesota, and I said, "Ooh, he's going to be a problem." I didn't even know he was on the field.
Yeah,
against the Eagles. Go back to Jeffrey Simmons. I would watch him, and I'd say, "Ooh, he's going to be a problem." No, he wasn't. Nick Bosa, he's going to be a problem. No, he wasn't. I'm through worrying about this offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the best offensive line since the 90s Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's I
Eric
mean,
Williams, Larry Allen, that crew.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Stepnowski, Mark
they
2
were
and
loaded.
8.
Yeah, they were loaded. I agree.
All 5 Pro Bowl, All-Pro, or Pro Bowl alternate. Jordan Mailata is healthy now. He struggled a little bit during the regular season. Now he's healthy. He's dominating. Isaac Seumalo is the most underrated one. Landon Dickerson got a little bit of a hyperextended elbow, but he's going to play. He's going to be fine. I don't worry about Chris Jones. And he's a great player, but he's one guy, and they have that entire interior to deal with him.
Yeah, I will say this. I don't know, if they can finish this thing off and win it, and he doesn't give up any pressures or quarterback hits and sacks, this run we're seeing from Lane Johnson, I'm talking about over a sustained couple of years into this, torn abductor thing that he's doing, is nothing short of remarkable. I know it's an offensive lineman. It's not a quarterback making heroic throws or a one-handed catch or whatever, but this is nothing short of incredible with this guy. This guy dominates the best players in football every week. Like, for me, I know we always talk about Kelsey, and he's absolutely a Hall of Famer in my estimation. Why isn't Lane Johnson in the conversation?
He should
because
be.
of the PED
Jody and
stuff?
I talk about it.
He's the best tackle in football, period. Not right, period. And he should be a Hall of Famer. He's done it long enough, and he's going to do it a couple more years. He's a Hall of Fame lock.
Oh, and I think it's only a matter of time. The question is, how much longer is he going to play? Which is one of the questions going to pop up after this game, win or lose. Brandon Graham, even longer tenured than Lane Johnson, and probably not in the Hall of Fame conversation the way Lane is, but he's certainly an Eagle Hall of Famer. But they have a lot of free agents they have to deal with this offseason. The cap is going up, but Jalen Hurts' payday is coming soon. is there going to be an issue with Brandon Graham coming back to this team for next season?
Jody, I think he's, on a positive note, I think he's the most likely to give you a little bit of a break in terms of a hometown discount, because he does love it here, right? And he makes no bones about it. But it's going to be hard. And where do you draw the line? I mean, do you value a 25-year-old CJ Gardner-Johnson, who you might have to kick in a couple extra bucks, which could come out of the coffers for Brandon? It's going to be really hard. It's a good problem, mind you, okay? But it's a problem nonetheless. I think he's the most likely to give you a bit of a break, certainly more than some others. I've heard people float the theory that Jalen Hurts is going to – no, he's not. And why would he give you any kind of break? Get every penny you can get, man. So I think Brandon's your only shot, Jody, at any kind of a little bit of leeway here. So I don't think it's out of the question he comes back. I think he values – look, he knows too. He's I know it's going to change a little bit, but he's in a rotation that keeps him fresh. Even though his numbers, his snaps are limited, he's not at a point now where I think it's an ego thing where I got to be out there. He knows this makes him a better football player.
Yeah.
So if he's thinking long-term production and happiness, I think he'll be. I would lean more towards he's back, Jody, than he's not back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with Rob there. I think of all the difficult decisions, I think Brandon's the easiest for that reason. He wants to be back here. He wants to get the 15 years. He understands, as Rob said, this has worked out beautifully for him, limiting his reps because of the depth of the defensive line. He understands all this. I think he's on board, and the Eagles know he's still a very good player, very important player, and he will give him a break. He's made enough money. I think that's one of the easier ones in what's going to be a very difficult offseason. But we have plenty of time to talk about that. I want to talk about legacies, Rob, legacy of this team, because this is the best team I've ever covered. This is the best team. This is a better team than the Super Bowl team. They will not be regarded as that if they don't finish the deal, though. Agree with that? Disagree? People understand how good this team is.
Yeah, I agree on both fronts, John. Number one, they've dominated, really. And it's funny. I asked Ray Didinger about this yesterday. We had Ray on Sports Take, and he said that they would go down as the greatest in his estimation. I think he comped them to like the 48 team. That's hard for me.
I'm saying Super Bowl era for me.
No, right. I agree. So so I can't go and dig too deep into that. But I would agree. You do have to finish the job. Like, it's all going to be, it's a great story and it's been an amazing run. But if you don't win the Super Bowl, you can't compare it to 17. You just can't, no matter what, because they didn't finish the job. And 17 knocked off the evil empire. But if you win it, considering the way that they've done it, they're going to end with 17 wins if they win that game. That's never been done in franchise history. And I know you played one more regular season game, but nonetheless, they have dominated the trenches on both sides. They have the best offensive line and defensive line in football, in my estimation. They'll have a quarterback who probably won't win it, but was in the conversation as an MVP. You know, in every phase they've dominated. I don't know how there's any other measuring stick. If you win the whole thing, you win more games than any team in franchise history has won, and you do it in a dominating fashion, not to mention knocking off Andy Reid, you know, the guy who laid the foundation for a lot of the philosophical ways the organization goes about things, against Mahomes, who's going to go down as an all-time great. Yes, they are. It's okay to say we're not hot taking here. It's just the reality of it.
I've mentioned this to a couple guys we've had on during the week and in other broadcast outlet I work on. Why is Kelsey always wide open? How does this happen? Have we not figured out that he's the best pass receiving tight end? How does the opposition not only let him get open, but wide open? It just bothers the heck out of me, and hopefully the Eagles have an answer for it. But I want to get a Kelsey take in another direction. Dallas Goedert. He's one of the best tight ends. He's not Kelsey, but he's surely one of the best tight ends. And last week, when Brady went down, the whole comparison with he and Kittle kind of went by the board. It wasn't even fair. And, oh, by the way, Eagles didn't throw it that much, so Dallas didn't put up big numbers. How big a game is this for Dallas Goedert? We know it's all for the Super Bowl and everything, but just his career going forward, the way he's looked at, the way he's viewed in the NFL, matching up against Kelsey in the biggest game. How big for Goedert?
It's a big game for him, for sure, Jody. I mean, look, he was – last week was a lot of sort of just dump over the middle and try and move the chains a little bit or advance, make it a 3rd and short. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't see that happening against the Chiefs. I think there's going to be more shots downfield. I think he's been underutilized, and that's not necessarily a bad thing or a knock on anybody. When you have a lot of talented players, there's only so much distribution that you can get, and I think he's hurt by that a little bit. Look, to your Kelsey point, I thought if anything, if there was going to be a year where we saw him take a little bit of step back, I thought it'd be this year, simply because they lose Tyreek Hill, right? You're going to focus more on him. No disrespect to Hardman and Schuster Smith and all those guys. They're okay. They're fine. And Mahomes figures out the way to make them look great at times. But you thought teams would really concentrate on Kelsey and that would shut him down. And I'm sure they have, but that just tells you how good the guy is. I think a lot of things help him. One is he was a quarterback back in his day. He went to Cincinnati as a quarterback at college. I mean, and that, I think, helps him understand Mahomes a little bit more, knowing when to get back to come back to a play, that kind of thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Goddard, we haven't seen really even close to scratching the surface of what he's capable of. And I think this could be a game where everybody's focused on a lot of other things, maybe A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, et cetera, on and on and on, where you could see him have a really big one. And I think he's due for one. I do.
Let's talk about the quarterback, Rob. We mentioned him a little bit. He's going to get a big payday very soon. Tom Brady retires today for good, and he announced it himself, so a little bit more credible this time around. Tampa Bay wasn't a great team this year, but Tom was still playing at a high level. Certainly still could win games. That's another NFC quarterback off the board. Obviously, he was this season because he's probably going to be second in the MVP voting to Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
But is Jalen Hurts just the flat-out best quarterback in the NFC moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, considering I think Rodgers is probably exiting the NFC, in my opinion. Unless he ends up in Tampa. But yeah, you look around, John, you look at the landscape. It's changed, right? Guys have aged out, if you will. And Jalen's upped his game to the point where, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
You got Dak, you got Stafford coming back, you got Cousins, you got Jared Goff. Jared Goff, I think, is the most underrated quarterback in the NFC.
Had a great year. I give him a lot of props, by the way. He gets dumped to Detroit, where he could have just kind of mailed it in and stole money and just become another Detroit quarterback where it's a disaster. And he didn't. I give him a lot of props for the way he handed as a professional.
You got Geno Smith had a great year.
I'm taking Jalen all day. All day, it's Jalen Hurts. Simply because I also know he's going to get better and better and better. Like
Kyler Murray, I got to throw. He had a bad year, but talented.
I'm not a fan. Yeah. I think it's Jalen, and it's really, when you think about it, I don't think it's all that close. I mean, even guys like Stafford have injury issues that are lingering. I think the Rams are in for a world of hurt going forward with the way they approach things, and props to them. They won a Super Bowl, but I think this thing is sustainable too. Not only is Jalen good and driven, he's got a great offensive line. And other than Sayamalu, that's not changing unless somebody retires. But I think, you can see this thing going forward being in a really good shape for him. So I'll take Jalen Hurts all day. And the other thing, I know he didn't play. I don't think he played great on Sunday. I thought the Giants game, he actually played really, really well. They just didn't have to do a lot. I thought he was a little bit off Sunday. So I think some of the concern from some people about how he's playing right now is a little bit overblown, but it's only natural. It's the quarterback spot.
John, shame on you for leaving out the red rifle when you were running.
Wow. How dare you, John?
Yeah, Andy Dalton. That's
he came in here and kind of beat that Gardner Minshew guy. So that's all I'm saying.
Right,
don't disrespect the red rifle. All right, Rob, back to the Chiefs and the Eagles coming up on Sunday. We talked a lot before you went to about the coaching matchup between these two teams, the quarterback matchup between these two teams. How about the coordinator matchup between these two teams? Again, the Eagles look like they're not going to lose either of their two coordinators. Shane Steichen could still get the Colt job. He's scheduled to do a second interview, but they're going to have to fit it in because he's kind of busy coaching here in Philadelphia this week. Mm-hmm. Gannon is staying. How big is that to the future Eagles' success? The fact that in a season where it looked like they could be losing key assistants on the team, and they may yet lose an assistant or two, not a coordinator, an assistant or two. How big is it that it looks now like they're going to be able to keep their guys?
Huge. I mean, it's hard to keep your coordinators after you either win or get to a Super Bowl. It really is. And, you know, and this looked like it was headed another direction for a while here. So I think it's enormous. And, you know, the guy you may lose maybe is Brian Johnson, maybe is an offensive coordinator somewhere. And that would be a hit. You know, I think he's a really great young mind, but yeah, for the most part, you're keeping this thing intact. And Jody, maybe that helps keep some of these free agents who might be on the fence around, right? Maybe. I mean, if all things are equal money wise, maybe having just the knowledge that this guy's going to be back is big for them. You know, as far as the coaching advantage, you know, Steve Spagnuolo knows what he's doing, right? And you're going to get a really good effort out of him. That much we know. We saw him here. We know what he did with the Giants. We know what he's done with Andy. So I think you're in for a challenge. Bieniemy, who's been, for whatever reason, sort of overlooked here when it comes to coaching searches and whatnot. And Andy, you know, it's hard to separate church from state there, who's doing what exactly in terms of play calling. But yeah, this is formidable, man. This is not, Eagles don't come in with some great advantage there. That's for sure. I'm confident what the Eagles bring to the table. And you guys know I've been a Gannon guy the whole way along. And Steichen, I don't, you know, obviously other teams respect him in a big way. Colt's still interviewing him.
Yeah.
But I think this is pretty close, Jody. Like if you're looking at this, and you probably maybe have to lean towards Andy simply because of the experience factor.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive. At Ellis Sports, follow Rob on Twitter. Obviously, the host of Sports Take here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, noon to 3 with D Gunn, Big Barrett Brooks. Does a tremendous job there. Sports Radio WIP as well. I know it's tough for you, Rob. You said at the start of this to get through this. So
doing push-ups. Soon as we finish this, yeah.
Trying to get you through this.
Thank you.
It's early in the process.
I know. I know I'm in trouble. I got to calm down a little bit. I'll be okay.
I want to get you. I want to get an X factor for each team. If you think somebody, you know, we've seen it in the past where some player, you know, Tim Smith back in the day jumps up and has a phenomenal game for old school football fans. But Eagles side, Chiefs side, anybody coming out of nowhere making a big play to say, hey, we're going to go down in Super Bowl lore.
How about Marcus Epps pick 6?
Yeah, there we go. Epsy. I love when people go Epsy.
Epsy, man. You can't go wrong with Epsy. Epsy makes a play that nobody thought was going to happen. You're thinking it's going to be CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's got a nose for the football. He's going to have the interception. I think Epps comes up with a big one in this game, guys. I think that could be enormous. Wow. As far as the other side goes, you know, the Chiefs, I don't know. I don't think this is an out of nowhere pick. And I know you guys know him very well as Jersey guys, but this kid Pacheco, man, is legit. And he is not somebody to sleep on here because he can do a lot of different things for the Chiefs. There was a great draft pick. And people who, you know, are watching us who saw him at Rutgers know, and you know, in the Jersey area know. But he's a name that maybe nationally and maybe some Eagles fans aren't quite as familiar with. But he is really good. I would watch out for him if I'm an Eagles fan.
Yeah, Vineland's old. I like it. Vineland, New Jersey.
He's legit.
All right, I'm going to call BS on both you guys. When Epsy signs with the Minnesota Vikings this offseason, you'll both go, no great loss.
Come on, Jody.
How do you even spell Epps? You'll get over Epsy going elsewhere.
He's not going back to the Vikings. They waived him. He doesn't want to go back to the Vikings.
New regime in Minnesota.
I got my 29 jersey, Jody. Come on.
Oh no, Epsy loves the Lakes. Just remember, hot takes.
Okay.
Sirianni, new head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs in 30-33.
30-33.
Wait,
he better keep himself
healthy. Some longevity, man.
Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah.
He's got to keep himself healthy.
Thank you for catching me on that, John. A little overstated. 1,000 years from now. No, 10 years from now. He's taking over the Kansas City Chiefs. And Epsy signs with the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see if that happens this offseason. Yeah. All right, so we know where you're going to be for the parade after the Eagles win this thing. Where are you watching the game on Sunday?
So I'll watch the game. This is my usual, what I usually do. I watch the first quarter and a half at my house, hop in the car. That gets me to the studio at WIP right before the third quarter. and then I do the post game in the Eagles 5th quarter with John Ritchie and Jack Fritz. So that's usually, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that's worked very well for me for a couple years.
Same as Nick Sirianni. Keep it the same.
Right? John, I don't mess with it, man. Yeah. I do not mess with it at all.
Yeah.
Is there anyone on that broadcast team who makes watching the game difficult?
Jack Fritz makes it difficult. He's distracting. Yes, I get distracted very easily. Like when I'm home, I'm a down and distance guy. Like I chart. Let me see if you guys can see this. I don't know if you can see it well enough. If you can,
you got the Ray Dinger yellow legal pad going?
Yeah, I'm a down and distance, 1st and 10, ball to 35. I chart every single play. So I've been doing that for 100 years. So I that's why even driving in the car, I'm a little bit put off that I can't chart every single play. I got to be careful driving the car, but I try to get into the studio and I want to be like locked in, and people are like, what do you think? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, can we just watch the game? So, yes.
Richie doesn't do that, does he? He's a focused guy.
Richie's the most laid back. Like I'll give you an example. When we're doing the post game show, Richie's already got the all 22 up and he's breaking down plays as we're doing the post game show. That's how locked in Richie is.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's focused. There's no question. I don't worry about Richie. Richie's the last guy I worry about.
When we bring you on, we don't worry about you. We just soak in the info. Rob Ellis, thank you very much.
Thanks,
have a great week on Sports Taken. Oh, yeah, then another week thereafter.
That's right. Hey, by the way, today, 12:30, Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson.
Lane at 12:30. Yes.
Very nice.
Yes. Yep.
And you can tell him that I, along with Rob Ellis, have already confirmed that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So please pass that along to him.
I will, Joe.
We've already got him can't bound. Robbie, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks,
Good
Rob.
seeing you as always. Take care, guys.
Rob Ellis from Sports Take with Lane Johnson coming up today.
Cutting through a torn adductor to do Sports Take. Well done, Lane Johnson.
And he won't have to go up against Barrett Brooks because he'll be somewhere else. And no in-studio hand-wringing between those two guys. That is a good get. The JAKIB Media channel has a good relationship with Mr. Hall of Fame Lane Johnson. Good to know he's going to be here around later on this afternoon. All right, McMullen and McDonald, back, guys, coming back to put a bow on the show.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades. No judgment zone for credit issues. The best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown Owner Appreciation Event.
Weather forecasting is a team game.
We rely on each other every day, updating the models and passing along new critical information.
We have a team of 5 experienced meteorologists and a specialized weather producer, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Sometimes what I see in the model, Cecily could see something different.
That's when we come together as a team to make our most accurate prediction.
And all of this backed by more than 100 AccuWeather scientists. It's a team game.
And we have the best team in town.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Coming down the home stretch on a waiting Wednesday, Birds 365, as the Super Bowl is still down the road a little bit, and we'll continue to break it down for you the rest of this weekend, all next week. Johnny Mac, is today a happy Wednesday?
No. Different schedule this week because of the Super Bowl, big game coming up, if no one didn't know. They're going to practice Thursday, have a walkthrough on Thursday. They're going to practice Friday and Saturday, and they leave for Arizona on Sunday. And they get into Arizona at 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock local time on Sunday, I believe.
Well, when do you get to talk to the still here in Philadelphia coordinators?
The coordinators are not on the schedule yet, so we'll see how that shakes out. They might have just forgotten. Got to follow up. They're going to have podium availability with a bunch of players: Jalen Hurts, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, all the main eventers, locker room access, but no coordinators on the schedule yet. We'll see. They should be on the schedule, so.
Do you think that's because Shane Steichen is still in conversation with another team? And
no, he's talked to no. We've asked
nothing to do it. They just forgot them. You just said they forgot them. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. How do you forget that the coordinators kind of talk to the media every single week here in town?
Hey, you'd be surprised, Jody. Now we've asked Shane that question before, on and off the record. He's used to it by now. Jonathan as well. Be where your feet are is the answer. But no, that's not the reason. And yeah, I think it's more likely they forgot, to be honest.
Well, so that whole thing Nick Sirianni was given about they're prepared, they're in the moment, they're focused, there'll be no distractions. Well, except for the PR staff that forgot the.
Well, he's not running the PR staff.
Okay, well then maybe he should. Nick, if you're listening, you might have to have a talk with your PR staff because John says they're forgetting that the coordinators need to be available to the media. I'm just saying. All right, partner, we'll do this again. I'm good for tomorrow. Are you? You gonna be back here with me?
Yeah. I'm planning on it day to day as always, but planning on it.
Good deal. And my bud, Glenn Macnow, will be joining us tomorrow, the host of the Eagles pregame show. We had the host of the Eagles postgame show today, Rob Ellis. And don't forget Lane Johnson right here, JAKIB Media YouTube channel, 1230 on Sports Take. Glenn Mack will join us tomorrow. You get the Mac and Mac guys right back here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.